Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brendan, and this week we noticed that there was hundreds of millions of dollars being raised for crypto projects and crypto-based companies around the world. Now, we subsequently noticed that there was hundreds of millions of dollars in Bitcoin leaving exchanges just the other day. Now, while all of this is happening, JP Morgan is appointing a new executive from the crypto company Celsius, and Warren Buffett's backed digital bank called Nubank is planning to launch its own cryptocurrency in Brazil. So I know this is a lot of news to digest, but we're going to be breaking down all of this in today's video. And if you don't know why the Warren Buffett news is big, that's because Warren Buffett has been notoriously bearish and against cryptocurrency, calling it things like rat poison. So we're going to be breaking down all of this, digesting all of this, and of course, looking at the chart as well, because Bitcoin and a lot of other altcoins are still in major squeezes that we have to talk about, because I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think that when these squeezes break, we are going to see a very large move in crypto, and it's only a matter of time until that happens, in my opinion. So let's start things off with all of the funding that is happening in the background of cryptocurrency, and then we'll talk about the near $750 to $740 million of Bitcoin that exited exchanges the other day. Now, this was the largest outflow that we had seen since June. And if you don't remember, in June, we saw prices crashing pretty heavily. But let's talk about this. Over here, we have Shetty's blockchain startup called Shardium raises $18 million in seed funding. This is, from the co-founder of Wazir X, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but this is India's largest crypto exchange. And what they're trying to do now is they're trying to expand their network in order to create more scalability and faster transaction times, lower fees, all the basic stuff that we see from layer ones or big projects like this one. And so what we do and what we saw here is that they raised about $18 million in funding. Stardust, on the other hand, which is crypto gaming related, rated this $30 million in funding. We also had a Hexen raising $4.2 million in funding. We had Fabric Systems raising $13 million in funding, and I'll explain why all this is important in just a moment. But we had we had Copper securing $196 million in funding, and the list goes on and on. We had Uniswap raising $165 million. We had Juno raising another $18 million. And the point of all of this is that crypto funding is, from the looks of it, not slowing down. Maybe in the sense that, yeah, money isn't coming in as fast as it was during the bull market. But what this highlights for me is that funding will still be there in excess. Otherwise, we wouldn't have, what was this? Almost 10 different rounds, 5 to 10 different rounds of funding that we just saw in the last week for millions and millions and millions of dollars. But what this does is make funding more competitive. So the quality projects are going to be the one getting funding in times like this one. And there is still a lot of money to go around. Otherwise, we wouldn't be seeing $1 million or hundreds of millions of dollars in figures being thrown around at these different projects. Again, with Uniswap well over $150 million in their most recent round of funding, and the other one with Copper securing almost $200 million in funding, all these other ones adding up to a solid amount, maybe another $100 million in funding between all the rest of the fundings that we talked about. But there's a lot of money to go around in cryptocurrency, and this shows that smart money, institutional money, big money, whatever you want to call it, they are still very confident investing in crypto during the bear market. And if you want to see where tech's going to be pushed in the next bull market, I think you can look at where big money is investing their money during the bear market. We saw this in 2018 and 2019 during the bear market. There was a lot of this happening and a lot of foundations and fundamentals that were being laid. And next thing you know, DeFi blew up, Web3 blew up, gaming and play to earn in the metaverse, and it all blew up. And these were the projects that were, for the most part, built in the 2018 and 19 and 20 bear markets of crypto. So lots of money is coming in here. And if you're looking for fundamentally strong news, this is some of the best stuff that you can look at. There is a ton of funding that is still happening. So to all the friends that you might have that are saying, are you still in crypto? Isn't that dead? Show them this article, because there is still hundreds of millions of dollars being poured into this. And this isn't even talking about trading. This is just saying for foundational growth and for the foundations being built, how many other industries can say that they are seeing hundreds of millions of dollars being poured into this? And I'll tell you what, it's going to be few. It is. Now, at the same time, a lot of people are seeing red flags from this 740 million. Some sources were saying that it went up to even $1 billion of Bitcoin leaving exchanges, which makes this one of the largest outflows of Bitcoin that we have seen. Now, typically, when we see Bitcoin moving away from exchanges, that means that it is going to a wallet. Specifically, people like to imagine that it's going to a cold wallet. And when this is happening, that means that people are not going to sell. Otherwise, they would be putting their money onto an exchange. Now, if this was $1 billion of Bitcoin going onto an exchange, I could tell you everyone would be freaking out, because that is a sign that it is likely going to be sold off. Why else would it go to an exchange, right? But with nearly $1 billion or $750 million of Bitcoin moving away from exchanges, that typically means that it's going to a wallet where it can be stored more securely because the owners are not interested in selling it. Now, I will say one possibility that I was talking with some of the team about is that this could be going to an OTC market, right? This could be going to an OTC market where it's not going to be sold on a public exchange like Coinbase or Crypto.com or something like that. So it's very likely that that is a possibility as well. But I also see this as people doubling down on their belief in Bitcoin and saying that they're not going to be selling Bitcoin. They have no plans to sell Bitcoin when it's at $19,000. They have no plans to sell Ethereum when it's under $1,500 or under $2,000. And that's kind of the reality of this situation. So yeah, a lot of money left Bitcoin, or a lot of money in Bitcoin left exchanges the other day, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. So over the past month or so, we've seen maybe almost $2.5 billion in Bitcoin leave exchanges. But again, I think that is not a bad thing. In fact, quite the opposite. I think it's a good thing. So let's talk about the technical analysis, and then we'll get into the rest of this news over here. But with Bitcoin continuing in this squeeze, I want to kind of just give an update. Not a lot has changed in the last couple of days. We are just moving sideways in between from resistance, or let me rephrase this, from resistance to support to resistance to support, from resistance back to resistance, and that's where we're hovering at right now. There's a very small amount of room left in this descending triangle where a decision will have to be made as to whether resistance wants to break or support wants to break. At the time of making this video, it looks like things are pushing towards a more bearish outcome. We're rejecting the 21-day EMA, so we're rejecting the 20-day SMA as well. And both of these have been pretty good indicators as to what's going to happen and what's going to go in the market. And when we reject things like this, especially after a breakdown like this one, it tends to not be the best of signs. Now, we also have two different forms of major resistance on Bitcoin, and if I zoom out, we can see that all of these are tying back into some of our previous swing highs that we have seen on Bitcoin, and we're seeing multiple rejections here. If we zoom out to an even larger time scale to say, what about from our all-time high to where we're currently at right now, we're seeing the exact same picture of swing highs acting as resistance and rejection for Bitcoin every time we come near these zones. So there is decent resistance on Bitcoin that is yet to be broken. And I think that's why Bitcoin is going to be leaning bearish here until this resistance breaks. Now, if this resistance breaks, I've said it before, but I think Bitcoin has a pretty clear-cut move to easily 23K, if not, excuse me, 25K. And the reason I say that is because that's where the top of this horizontal channel is. And if Bitcoin is to move back up here, that is the area that I think Bitcoin is most likely to be used as resistance. We used it as previous support, now turned to a very clear resistance level. And if we're going to move back from anywhere, we've already shown that we can go from this level to support, to resistance, to support. I just think that it makes sense that we go back to this resistance level. So until one of these major areas break, there's not too much to digest on Bitcoin. It's just watch this level very closely and do the same on major other cryptocurrencies. Ethereum's in a squeeze right now. Uniswap. I believe Matic was just breaking out of a bull flag. There's lots of stuff happening on the charts. Maker and Lido and so many other cryptos are just going wild right now. So keep an eye on all of them. QNT is another one. It's just going absolutely nuts. And let's get back into the news. The cryptocurrencies all over the place. I mean, they're having an amazing day. Now, let's talk a little bit more about Mr. Buffett here, because Mr. Buffett has been, as I said earlier, notoriously against cryptocurrency. At one point, he even called it rat poison, and he still stands by that statement. But here he is with a Buffett-backed digital bank called Nubank that is part of its whole spiel is that they want to work with cryptocurrency and blockchain-related like industry products. And so now Nubank, which is Buffett-backed, is trying to launch its own cryptocurrency in Brazil. And something tells me that Buffett made these statements and doesn't believe in them anymore. Because if he did, I just don't see an avenue where they would be getting this involved, and he would be okay with getting this involved to crypto exposure to the extent of launching its own cryptocurrency for something that he is indirectly involved in. And so part of me believes that even his belief system is shifting, but he is so tied to the traditional financial system or the TriFi system that he has to make these kind of statements. But, you know, money speaks louder than words, as I like to say, and he's backing something that is directly working with cryptocurrency to the extent of trying to launch a cryptocurrency in an entire country. And that to me means more than words. Now, maybe he'll make a statement on this, but until he does, I still see this as a big move that's happening. And we have traditional finance people getting cryptocurrency exposure one way or another, no matter what they are saying. Now, in some of the final news, we have JP Morgan appointing the former Celsius executive, or a former Celsius executive, as their new crypto regulatory policy head. This one was a little bit of a surprise to me, as I think it is to a lot of people, because Celsius has been in the news for all the wrong reasons this year. And maybe they're hiring these people so that something like Celsius never happens at their company. And I would imagine that that's their main reason for doing this. But nonetheless, people are going from one area of crypto to another. And this is a very large financial company or institution saying that we want to make sure that we are staying in the loop about crypto. So we're going to hire these people to make sure that we are regulated in the correct ways so that something like Celsius will never happen to us, which ultimately is a good thing. We don't want to see another Celsius happen. We know that it had a very negative effect on the market, and if we can prevent those, it's the best case scenario at the end of the day. Now on our final news topic, the long-awaited Solana killer Aptos has finally launched. Well, kind of, right? Because apparently they had launched like a week ago and it was private, and so now they're just publicly launching after all sorts of a rough road to get here. They finally launched, and Aptos has been receiving a lot of backlash, I would say, at least in the news and how they've been handling their launch so far. I think they launched at like a 50, or it says this over here, it's a near $1 billion evaluation. And so they are fairly large in and of themselves. They're another layer 1 competitor, again, a Solana competitor, the Solana killer. We'll see. With the way that they launched, it doesn't look like they're going to be killing anyone anytime soon. But I'm just skeptical. I think that for a company that has been in the works for so long with such a reputable team, I think things could have been communicated better and things could have been launched better for sure. But ultimately, the technology behind them could be killer. And I think that's going to be the real game changer here as to whether or not their technology is worth the wait and worth the troubles that people had to go through. Now, will it be a Solana killer? Again, it just launched. We don't know yet. Like, yeah, they have DAOs, they have DeFi, they have NFTs. But nowadays, that's the standard for pretty much every layer 1 to have those kind of things. So ideally, yes, they're going to be fast. We'll have to wait and see. I think there's a lot of hype behind this, but we haven't really seen enough yet. So as time continues and as we progress in this situation, of course, we're going to cover this more. We'll probably bring up Aptos in a couple of months, hopefully in a good light. Again, we don't want to see anything fail here, but time will tell here. Time's the ultimate teller, and we're going to have to see if Aptos can really stand the test of time, because even with Solana going down a couple times over the past year, it has still been able to be relevant. It's still a top cryptocurrency. It's not like it fell out of the top 100 or the top 50 or anything like that. So I think that that proves something. But that's going to pretty much round us out for this video, everyone. Big takeaways are watch out for the squeeze in crypto, especially on Bitcoin, and look at all the funding that is continuing to come in. If you need good news and you need something to learn about what's happening in the world of cryptocurrency fundamentally behind the scenes, because that is something that I see as indefinitely valuable. But that's going to wrap us up for this video. Thank you all for watching, and I will see all of you in Friday's video.